First, let's start with this case. I, 35F, have been living with my roommate for the last 4 years. Together with my dad, we used to include her in all holiday dinners until she'd yell at us over truly stupid things, such as not doing potatoes how she wanted, even though we did 100% of the cooking, and she didn't tell us she wanted things done differently. So we stopped the holiday dinners, but every once in a while we still did certain meals together every couple of months or so. The last time we did a meal together with her was Halloween, and since then she has been constantly making many requests for us to make certain meals for her. Now, she's aware that we've included other people in our meals a couple of times because they're mutual friends. However, a few days ago, she made a comment how we never do meals with her anymore. I calmly asked her what she meant by that, and listed all the meals we've included her in on. Then pointed out to her that I actually can say that she has never made a single meal for us in years, so I don't understand why she'd say that. She then tried to backtrack, saying, well, I guess not never. It was her comment that we never do meals with her that makes me want to stop them altogether, because it just tells me that she never appreciated them to begin with. So am I in the wrong for stopping meals? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong, and I would tell them the truth. We don't, because when we've made efforts to include you, you complain about the way we make things. It's not been pleasant, and your behavior is not only rude, it provides no incentive to continue having special meals with or for you. Do you need her to be your roommate? I don't know the circumstances of the living arrangements, but she seems to think you've been ignoring your duty to feed her. You're not in the wrong, but do really need to live with someone who hasn't even attempted to make a meal in all the years you've lived together. You owe her nothing. In a perfect world, she'd owe you money since you've been feeding her, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's never contributed to the cost. You're not in the wrong. You've been doing it a lot longer than I would. You're an adult, and since you want your food a certain way, it's on you to make it. It's rude to ask me to cook the way you want, so I'm not cooking another meal for you. This includes no eating leftovers. Stop being taken advantage of. Next up, I'm going to try to keep this as short and sweet as I can because I just need to know if I really screwed up. For backstory, I, 21F, have a best friend Ali, 21F, and we've been best friends since 9th grade. We're complete open books with each other, and we've until now never judged. I always wanted her to feel safe to talk to me about anything, and I hoped she felt the same about me. We both go to the same uni and room together. So around 8, almost 9 months ago, we had been friends since I started uni. I got together with my girlfriend Freddie, 22F, and she's been my first love. It's been so incredible being with her. She is such an angel that just gets me on every single level. Big oversharing time. But losing my virginity has always been something that really scared me, in the sense of trusting someone with my body like that. No trauma or anything, just scared. But I finally got there with Freddie a few nights ago. She was so loving, and after we were done, I just cried out happy tears. I was so just ecstatic that I got to do that with someone I love so much, and Freddie just hugged me tight and was so kind about it. I told Ali about this the day after, and since then, she keeps making jokes about me being a big crybaby, and will just mock cry at me randomly when we see each other. I just rolled my eyes at her and tried to just bear it, because no way was I letting her ruin that experience for me. Last night, we were at a party together, and she absolutely crossed the line. First, she was just making wah-wah noises at me, but then she made a gross joke about Freddie having a thing for crying. I just yelled at her to shut up because I'm so sick of it. It's just not funny. She looked all shocked, and I just called Freddie and asked her to pick me up. I've been at her apartment off campus since, and Ali and some of our friends that witnessed it are getting upset with me and telling me to stop being so sensitive. I haven't answered any texts yet, and Freddie's telling me I did nothing wrong with removing myself from the situation. But I'm still so conflicted. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You're conflicted? Conflicted about what, exactly? Whether it was acceptable to tell your so-called best friend to shut up after she repeatedly mocked you for something deeply personal? Here's the reality. You shouldn't even be questioning yourself right now, because your reaction was entirely justified. The real problem here is that you tolerated her childish, mean-spirited nonsense for as long as you did. You shared a vulnerable moment with someone you considered a close friend, and rather than respecting that, she decided to turn it into a joke. Not just once, but repeatedly, despite you clearly being uncomfortable with it. And then, when you finally had enough and told her to shut up, because what else was there to say, suddenly you're the bad guy? Please. The only reason you're feeling conflicted is because you're surrounded by people who have no concept of basic decency, and they've gaslit you into thinking you did something wrong. I also want to address the utter stupidity of their "you're too sensitive" argument. Sensitivity isn't the issue here. The issue is that your friend is being a disrespectful jackass. If you repeatedly insult someone and they eventually snap, that's not their problem. It's yours. If I walked up to a stranger every day and mocked them for something personal, and one day they finally had enough and told me off, I wouldn't get to whine about how sensitive they are. I'd have to face the fact that I was acting like an idiot and they finally got sick of it. Your friend could have stopped at any point. She didn't. That's on her. Also, let's not gloss over the fact that she escalated her mockery to something truly disgusting. The moment she made a perverse comment about your relationship, she revealed exactly what kind of person she is. Someone who not only enjoys tearing others down, but has zero respect for your dignity or boundaries. That wasn't just a joke gone too far. That was cruelty, plain and simple. And now she and her little fan club are upset that you walked away? Good. Let them be upset. You don't owe people access to your life when they've proven they don't deserve it. You removing yourself from the situation was the most rational, self-respecting thing you could have done. Frankly, you should go a step further and remove Ali from your life entirely. A best friend is supposed to be someone who supports you, not someone who degrades you for fun and then plays the victim when you finally push back. Freddie is right. You did nothing wrong. The only mistake you made was giving Ali the benefit of the doubt for as long as you did. So stop second-guessing yourself, block the peanut gallery, and move on. You deserve better than a friend who treats you like a punchline. Has Ali ever displayed any similar mocking behaviors to yourself or anyone else before? If this behavior is totally new, it's likely it's a case of jealousy. Maybe her first time wasn't nearly as magical, or maybe she's still a virgin. Or maybe she's jealous of how close you and Freddie are becoming, and your first time together and how meaningful and beautiful it was for you tipped her over the edge. If this behavior is not new, but you've never been on the receiving end of it before, well, maybe Ali isn't a nice person. If it's the former, then try and talk to her. Explain that her constant mocking of what was a very special moment for you is very hurtful, and you can't understand why someone you love as much as you love Ali would behave that way towards you. Try and talk it out. If it's the latter, well, maybe it's time to reconsider Ali's status as your best friend, now that you know how awful it is to be on the receiving end of her mockery. You're not in the wrong, though. You perhaps would have addressed the issue in a more mature way, but it can be hard to be the mature one in a situation where someone is behaving so immaturely towards you. You're not in the wrong. Ali is doing things for one of 3 reasons. She was never your friend to begin with. She's uncomfortable about you either crying or losing your virginity, so she's trying to make light of the situation, in the worst possible way. She might have feelings for you. Regardless, none of this is an excuse to be doing what she is doing. The part that really gets under my skin about this is how she and her friends are telling you to stop being so sensitive. If the person that the joke is directed at is doing the opposite of making them laugh, that isn't a joke. That's being an ah. You were absolutely in the right for getting out of that toxic environment. I'm also really happy to hear you have a girlfriend that had your back and let you know you did nothing wrong. As for Ali, if you feel comfortable, you should have a talk with her about how her words and actions affected you. I know that would be difficult, but if she is actually a good friend, she will take in what you said and respect that. And if not, well, then you have your answer about what she thinks of you. Next up, I F35 and my husband M36 were gifted a truck by my father last year to start our own excavation business. This truck is a Dodge diesel truck, used mostly for pulling heavy equipment. This truck was not cheap, but wasn't brand new either. My husband got on drugs real bad, and unfortunately I had him arrested for DV. My plan initially was to file divorce, as this isn't tolerated by family, and most importantly, myself. We live in the middle of nowhere, and our truck was broke down in our driveway. One day, I was outside and a tow truck pulls up and starts loading up our truck. The guys were my husband's ironworkers' buddies, and I told them to drop the truck and to get off my property as per my no trespassing signs. They refused, so I called the police. Turns out my husband had signed the title to our truck over to his mom, and they sent these guys to come pick it up. I told the officer that I did not sign the title over, but because it said "or" and not "and" on the title, it was legal and she could take the truck. My husband ends up staying in jail for over a year, and I continue for 6 months asking his mom for it back. I explained that I was having car trouble and that I needed it because I and my kids were snowed in for 2 weeks without the 4-wheel drive. They wanted to fix the truck, and I said no. If they could tow it back over and sign the title back, I would fix it. They agreed, and the day before I was supposed to get it, they refused. They said they had fixed the truck, and I owed them $800, and that I had to drive 2 hours away to come get the truck, or they weren't signing the title back over. My husband called us from the jail and told them to sign the truck back over because he didn't want me and the kids stranded without a vehicle. They told him and I that they would sign it back over, but refused. I contacted a detective in my county who advised me to text them in a group text, saying they had until a set date to return to truck and title over, or I was filing with the courts. They ignored me and the date came and went. 2 days later I filed. It cost me over $200 to file. The date was set. We went to court, and the only way I could get my truck back was to pay them the $800, and they wanted me to put insurance on it to drive it back to my house. So I did, and they drove it over, signed over the title. I drove the truck for 1 week, and it broke down again. The $800 was for them fixing the flywheel and putting 2 new batteries in it. My mother-in-law texted me a couple of times asking about the kids. I initially ignored her, but I got so mad and went off on her, and she still thinks she did nothing morally wrong. She works at a Helping Hands church, helping people in need. I ended up just blocking her and focusing on my kids and myself. So, am I in the wrong? Let's start judging. Your in-laws are in the wrong. They should have just signed it back to you. Your husband is super in the wrong. Why are you still with him? Once he gets back home, if he's not able to leave the drugs alone, this truck thing will be the tip of the iceberg. And you are delulu that somehow it's your in-laws' fault for this when your husband is the toxic match to this flame. Now you are out $1,000, $200 for suing, and $800 for paying for BS repairs. Your question was, am I in the wrong for suing my in-laws? You're not in the wrong for that. If it made you feel better, but you didn't have a leg to stand on because the sign over was done legally. But you're in the wrong for the denial you are in about your DH and the blame you are heaping on the wrong people. I also disagree with the above commenter. Don't keep in touch with your kids' grandparents. They're not kind people, and they weren't trying to help you. What have you learned from this? How to sign title to a vehicle for one, and not or, and hopefully don't trust or keep your dear backstabbing hubby. Everyone sucks. This should be handled by your divorce attorney, not by suing your ex's mom. You co-owned an asset with him. He gave it away thinking he could shield it from the divorce. That's called dissipation. He's idiot for putting his mom in the middle. You're in the wrong for letting him drag you into it. Take the high ground and do everything through your attorney. You're not in the wrong. Your mother-in-law's actions were unfair, considering that the truck was a crucial tool for you and your kids to get by while your husband was in jail. She was aware of your situation and still made it difficult for you to get the truck back, even after promising to return it. Charging you $800 and making you drive to pick it up after they took it without your consent sounds manipulative and disrespectful. You did what you had to do to get back what was rightfully yours, and setting boundaries by blocking her seems reasonable given how she handled the situation. Next up, my 23M cousin, 30Men, and his GF, 32F, recently had to move out of their place after his girlfriend lost her job. My cousin has been unemployed for quite some time due to his mental health, which is a sore subject for him. This will be relevant later. His GF has been job searching, but it's a long process and they need somewhere to stay in the meantime. So they've been staying with me and my roommate, 22Men. I didn't love this arrangement in the first place, since we have a 2-bedroom apartment, and I've needed to move into my roommate's room to make space. But it's family, and my roommate says he doesn't mind having me in his room for now, plus my aunt is paying us. So whatever. The problem is that my cousin and his GF have insisted on bringing their emotional support dog with them, not a service dog. It's technically fine in terms of our lease, and I don't mind dogs in general, so at first I said okay, but this thing has been a nightmare. It's loud, pees on our floors, and it chewed up one of our couch pillows. My cousin and his GF think this behavior is hysterical and endearing. But every time my roommate and I tried to bring up that we'd rather they find somewhere else for their dog, they go on and on about how they can't possibly part with their fur baby and just will not hear it. This all kind of culminated last night because my roommate had an important presentation this morning, so he tried to go to bed early last night, but the dog would not stop barking. My cousin and his GF were all like, "Ah, she wants to play," but my roommate and I were pretty annoyed. I told my cousin that this arrangement was not working and that he needed to find somewhere else to put the dog. He told me again that it's their fur baby. And his GF started getting really upset and telling me we were making the dog feel unwelcome, and it was like asking them to part with their child. I told them that the dog is not a baby, and that they need to take responsibility for it or find somewhere else for the 3 of them to stay. He reminded me that he needs the dog for emotional support, and that his GF is trying to find a job, and they have nowhere to go until then. Partially out of anger, I told him that his emotional support needs weren't my problem, and that maybe he should try getting a job too. I know he's had a rough time with his mental health and how that impacts employment, so I think those 2 statements put together cut a little deeper than I intended, and he hasn't been talking to me today. And his girlfriend called me an ableist for what I said. My aunt texted me this morning that my cousin and his GF plan on moving out this weekend with their dog, and that I was way too harsh with him. I do understand why the comment had that effect on them, and I feel bad for that. But it finally got the dog out of our place after we've been trying the gentler approach, so I don't really know what else I could have done. Am I in the wrong? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. Isn't it so cute and funny how our untrained dog keeps destroying your home? No, it's not. They're setting that dog up for failure because they're too lazy to properly train it. I love dogs, but they would have been out in a week if it was my home. And no, you're not ableist for what you said. It sounds like your cousin uses his mental illness as a shield from responsibility. You're not in the wrong. If a human baby was peeing on the floor, I'd have same sentiment. Screw everything else. Having a creature just urinate in the home is inexcusable. If you need the dog for support, they care for it. Take it on walks. Give it attention. That they laugh when they think their dog is barking for attention is sad. Why isn't dog getting attention? They are being cruel to that animal. You're not in the wrong. Although I understand the sentiment of hitting them with something below the belt, it sounds like your cousin and his girlfriend have some immaturity issues. I understand how serious mental health can be in preventing him from finding work, but the way they talk to you and about this fur baby reads extremely childish. Emotional support dogs do just that. Support. Not make everyone's life harder. You and your roommate are significantly younger, tight on space, and kind enough to let them stay with you guys while you compromise the most. Not the idiot, but they kind of are.